Good evening, councillors. It's 6:30 and I'd like to welcome everybody to the Community Wellbeing Overview and Scrutiny Committee. The first piece of business is for me to read the fire evacuation procedures, and that says there are no fire alarms scheduled for this evening. Therefore, if the fire alarm sounds, please evacuate the building immediately. The fire exits are located at the rear and the side of this room. Go down the stairs and meet in the War Memorial Park. Thank you. Referring to the second item on the agenda, the webcast of the meeting, and that is to note that the open proceedings of this meeting are being webcast on the internet. Item 3, to receive apologies for absence. Now, we have one apology for absence, and that's Councillor Mrs. Taylor, and we have a number of resignations and replacements. We have Councillor James for Councillor Hussey. We have Councillor Mrs. Tucker for Councillor Miss Bean. We have Councillor Round for Councillor Musson, and we have Councillor Mitchell for Councillor Marks. Now, the more observant of you will have noticed that my vice chair is one of those who is not here this evening, and I would like to propose that Councillor Sherlock stands in as vice chairman for this meeting only. Thank you. Any issues with that? Thank you very much. Could I ask Councillor Sherlock to move a little closer, as they say?
Very cozy up here.
Thank you very much. Item 5, declarations of conflict of interest or whipping decisions. Are there any? No, thank you. Item 6, urgent items, there are none. Item 7 is to confirm the minutes of the previous Community Wellbeing meeting held on the 20th of June. And they are paper A. I would like to propose that we accept these minutes as they stand, unless there are any other issues that anybody has. Thank you very much. I'll sign those accordingly. Member and public participation upon issues contained within the agenda. Now, we are none that I've been notified of. Item 9 is the standing invitation to the relevant portfolio holder, and that is to Councillor Mrs. Ostleton, who's the portfolio holder for partnerships. Thank you very much. And you reserve, as usual, your right to come forward and speak and add whatever you wish to add at any point in relation to papers that relate to your portfolio. Thank you very much. Item 10, referrals from other committees. Of the Council, there are none. 11, issues referred by the Cabinet, there are none. Which brings us to the body of our meeting this evening. I'm going to take the papers in the order that they're set out, which is pretty handy, numerically and alphabetically. So the first paper is the future of Basingstoke Live, which is paper B in your papers. I would like to say at the beginning that we've got a lot of papers this evening, and it's not my desire, and I'm sure it's not yours, to be here for hour after hour after hour. So I hope Councillor Jones looks disappointed. But I would like to hope that we can work through the agenda that we have this evening, so we don't have a ridiculous finish time. I certainly don't want that, and I don't think, actually, looking at the agenda, I don't think it's necessary either, and I hope you agree. Thank you. So, paper B, and we have with us Diane Hayward and Andy Grove, the two officers whose report we're going to, or we've already had, and we're going to hear the presentation. After that, I would like to call on the chairman of the MAP, which is your good self, Councillor James. I hope you've come here prepared to make a contribution if you wish. It's not a compulsory thing. If you wish to add to the work of the map, because that was something that this committee commissioned last time, and I think the map has helped us move forward hugely since the last time we met. And if don't feel obliged to make a contribution, but I know you won't be able to resist it. So thank you very much. I think Diane, you're going to go first. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Right, the purpose of the report that we're going to present to you tonight, the main reason for being here is to feed back to the committee on the outcomes of the map that was set up at the December OSCOM last year. And firstly, on behalf of the events team, we'd like to thank the map for all the work that they put in the meetings and for their time and their energy and consideration. I think we've got three members at least here tonight. The report also evaluates the success of this year's event, and as part of the report that covers some of the discussions that the map had, we've revisited the tables that were presented to you in December, looking at the issues around charging for entry. So the first task of the map, I think when it met in early January, was to have a look at the obstacles that seem to be in the way of the event taking place this year. And a very good discussion was had, a lot of issues were aired, and the outcome of that meeting was that work started on planning for the event to take place on the 13th and 14th of July. Although we were quite late in starting, normally we would have started a few months earlier than that, Andy and the team did an excellent job of getting everything together. And as you can see from the paper and some of the images, we had a very successful weekend, 36,000 people through the gates. And also because of the relationship that we built up with the police and the external stewarding team, we also had much reduced antisocial behaviour both on site and off the site in the town centre. So subsequent meetings, once we'd actually got the planning underway for this year, was to look at the future of Basingstoke Live, and the map's conclusions are in the report. But to summarise, the map's preferred option was firstly to secure £27,000 ongoing funding for Basingstoke Live to continue to deliver that event as a free event, and also to endeavour to seek some funding to develop the Basingstoke Festival. So they were the two preferred conclusions of the map. And in the recommendations in the report, you'll see that we've asked that the committee notes that the money the Cabinet proposes that £27,000 for Live will be in the medium-term financial strategy as an ongoing funding. And the festival funding is being sought through the budget process. That's not finalised yet, we're still going through that process. And that's all. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you very much. Right. Obviously, the next phase is questions to the officers. And when we come to questions and debate, if we could try and focus them around the two recommendations of the report. So any questions for the officers in relation to the paper and the presentation? Councillor Round, I think your hand was up to speak.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I read through the report, and I think as everybody is pleased, it was a fantastic event. But just moving forward, obviously, we're looking for this extra £27,000 as an ongoing, and to support that, etc. But costs will go up, of course, in time. So I would wonder how much work, or whether we could do some work in terms of the concessions and those types of things to try and bring in extra funding there, in terms of not, again, looking at the paper, we don't want to turn it into a too big a commercial event, and we certainly don't want to try attracting people from outside of the borough, etc., etc. So I just want to, is there an opportunity there to increase income?
There is an opportunity to do that every year. Every year we look at it in its own entity for the event and try and maximise that income as much as we can. It is a process that we've gone through, and as the events build to a certain size, then it's grown and it's probably plateaued. So we're probably not going to see a significant increase in that, but every year we try and maximise that.
Thank you. I'd just like to ensure that we can try and put a bit more of a commercial hat on there. Just dig a bit deeper each time. My second question was that again trying to make sure that we bring people throughout the borough to the event. I'm looking at bringing more income, but now I'm going to look at trying to help you spend it. In terms of the outlying places, like for instance Tadley, Borghurst, and Bramley, have we ever looked at putting on additional transport, whether that be funded fully or partially paid commercially wise? If it's better than using taxis, I'm sure, if we can get 50 people on a coach rather than all individual taxis. So that again, we're putting the message out more to the people in the outlying areas that this facility is there for them. It's a great venue, and making sure that they can easily get to it.
It hasn't been looked at before, but we can certainly have a look at that and research some costs.
Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Chairman. The concessions income shown for this year, 38,000 something, is that increased from previous years? I mean, is there some pattern of increase in or is it the same old faces?
There are some same old faces, but there are also changes. I believe, I can't remember the figure accurately off the top of my head, but I believe that's a small increase on what we achieved last year.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Councillor Mrs. Tucker.
Thank you. On the same kind of subject, about sponsorship that was mentioned in the report, is there any chance that we might find somebody who would help sponsor it?
We're always on the lookout for sponsors. Resource levels limit us in how much time we can actually spend focusing time on that, but we're always in the ring for anybody that wants to sponsor.
One of the other areas that I'm responsible for is the economic team, the business team as well, and we do try and get the two teams to work together so that we can put some of our business contacts in discussion with both the festival, Basingstoke Live, and also we lost a sponsor for the Mayor's Fireworks this year. So we're always trying to do that, but it isn't an easy task.
Thank you. Councillor Cousins.
Thank you, Chair. Just following up on the point of sponsorship there. Obviously, the whole ethos of Basingstoke Live is to keep it as a free event, and obviously that we should be emphasising the talent that this borough has. Is there a danger that with some sort of sponsorship that the sponsor would want to put their own twist on things, and that could potentially lose some of the value that Basingstoke Live already has?
Yes, there's always that potential of that happening. So any sponsor would have to be carefully select that it was sort of in tune with the ethos and theme of the festival, and didn't diminish from that.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Before we move into debate, I'm going to ask Councillor James if he wants to make any contribution directly from the map as chairman of it. As I said earlier, you're under no obligation to do so, but here's your, I was going to say 20 minutes in front of the fridge, but no, you're not going to have 20 minutes.
Yes, first of all, thank you to the members of the MAP, particularly I think the two on this committee that attended every one of those MAPs. It was really useful, small group discussions, and Councillor Bean was very active as well in her membership. We managed to resolve some of the issues with the healthy officers that were perhaps put in a way of running Basingstoke Live 2013, and it was impressive the fact that the officers then obviously went away and managed to squeeze sort of 9 months of planning into 6 months, and the event, which obviously we all attended as a MAP, was absolutely fantastic. Real family event, and it had everything from looking professional but still be in a very family and relaxed environment. It was absolutely superb, and I think we all just knew as soon as we hit the field that this is something we'd fight to save, because I think it is the best that Basingstoke has to offer. If there was one area of improvement, I think for future years, is that those people attending this year were subjected to Andrew's knees as he wore shorts. I'm not sure whether that possibly dampened down the numbers slightly, so I should mention that. Without embarrassing too much. So yes, it was a fantastic event. We did explore as a MAP some of the funding issues I think have been brought up in questions, and obviously I think the report covers ticketing, and I don't think there's any desire in this committee at the moment to bring back ticketing. We will bring in ticketing. We looked at it, and whichever way you cut it, it was the council taking on a huge financial risk that we might run this event and sell no tickets at all because we were charging for them, and to sell that many tickets to actually make ends meet meant that we probably wouldn't do that either. So it really was a bit of a huge risk to undertake. In terms of sponsorship, obviously, I think Councillor Cousins has mentioned we did discuss it again as a MAP. We're always on the lookout for a sponsor, and whether any new retailers moving into the area fancy giving us some money for next year, we'll wait and see, and perhaps it's something we should discuss, when businesses move into Basingview. But obviously there is a risk they want to take over the event and run it slightly differently, and we want to keep the ethos of the event as Councillor Cousins outlined. And at the end of the day, if you want sponsorship and you want to attract it, particularly in the current climate, you need to employ people, specialists, to go looking for that sponsorship, and all too often that means you spend a lot of money, and again, huge financial risk. So I think we still keep on the lookout. We should still, as a council, be alert to the idea that any new business moving to the area, we should mention what we do locally for the community and ask if they want to get involved, which I'm sure we do. But we are pretty much left with picking up the tab for running what is a hugely successful event. And if you break it down sort of in terms of cash per person that turns up, it's a very, very cheap way of entertaining an awful lot of people. I was fortunate enough as well to be around Basingstoke Magistrates Court the following Monday to see what was going on, to see what the overnight sales looked like, and there was no one in the sales that night that was related to this event. So hugely successful from the police point of view, brilliantly organised by the officers, and fantastic. And I spent too much time in a heavy metal tent and couldn't hear anything till about Wednesday. But there we go.
Excellent, yeah, and I would say the same thing. I had the opportunity to go, thanks to an invitation from Andy, with Councillor Cousins and Councillor Mrs. Ostleton and others on the Sunday, and it really was quite a superb event. And we did have an opportunity to talk to a number of the people who were organising the various theme tents, and it was a quite excellent event. Likewise, the music kind of did my head in a little bit, but it would do, wouldn't it? But it was a superb event, and I've also seen the reports back that I referred to in the officer's report here from the police, who said likewise quite strongly for the police, I thought, very positive indeed about not just the levels of difficulty, but the levels of success as well. So I think it was a superb event. I'm going to open it out to debate, if we wish to debate it. Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, some of us remember the somewhat stormy meeting last winter, not this winter, the previous winter, when there were some proposals not to do Basingstoke Live, and there were some fallings out in the ranks of the volunteers or whoever was doing what to who, all sorts of hints and suspicions, and this committee, very wisely in my opinion, decided to have a map that was given the terms of reference of sorting it out and getting it back on the road. But not quite in those terms, but and I really think we should congratulate all concerned, not just our own officers, but the outside volunteers who clearly put a lot of effort into it, the acts and everybody, and the good people who turn up and behave so well. And I think it's it's not exactly my cup of tea as a person, but I think it's great for the borough and for the town that we have an event like this, and I think it's essential it's kept as a free event. The charging for something, you are creating a different event. The expectations are different. The nature of the thing's different. Getting volunteers to work on a chargeable event is a more challenging thing. Well, it can be done, of course, and sponsorship and so forth. Sponsorship is, I think, a safe thing. I don't have any reservations about sponsorship if we can get sponsors, as long as the terms of reference are what you're doing is getting your name on it. You're not joining a committee to plan it or anything like that. And that's all sponsors should do, in my opinion. If you sponsor a thing at the Opera House or something, you don't get to decide who's on the programme or who wrote the music. You just get your name on the agenda, and I think that's what sponsors should do. But I do appreciate, as Diana said, that and Andy, that it isn't trivial easy. You don't just pick up the phone. There has to be some good reason for it, and maybe somebody new coming to the town, building a shop or something, without mentioning any names, could be vulnerable to establish their name in the town. But I'm congratulations all round. I'm so pleased that what we decided last year has had such fruitful results, and I'm very strongly in favour of both recommendations. Get the funding in for the future, and find ways to make sure it stays on the road as good as it is. I don't think if you start turning it into 100,000 people, it's a different event, and your parameters and arguments, everything changes. So it may be that if it's plateauing, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Aiming to have more people may not be a sound objective. I mean, another 5,000 or something, but doubling it, probably not a good idea. But I think it's great. Well done the map, the officers, portfolio holder, anybody else who wrote in.
Absolutely, and I would like to think this committee can endorse those comments, especially to Andy and Diane and the team who actually put together and kept together, despite the difficulties that Councillor Mitchell has been referring to. I think we produced a quite spectacular event. Maybe the music wasn't going to be to your taste, and there wasn't a Mantovani tent in there, so it wouldn't have worked. It wouldn't have worked too well. So yeah, I would like the endorsement of this committee. A very successful event, especially when you look back to how it has been and the problems and issues, not just since the last community wellbeing. So congratulations and thanks to the officers, and also the MAP. Thanks to Gavin and other members of the MAP. Like I said in the beginning, I think you moved us forward hugely, and we are where we are now, I think, thanks to the work that you've done. I think we're all in favour of an unticketed event that will continue. And I think, as Councillor Mitchell said, long may it continue and grow, because it's a great credit to the borough. Can I suggest then that we take the recommendations, unless there's any other debating points in relation to Councillor James?
I'm disappointed Councillor Mitchell didn't find any of the tents of his liking. But if he likes to send to Andrew what sort of tent of music he would like, because it is Basingstoke Live, it's not restricted to just pop or anything. So if he thinks there's some local bands that might want a tent to have a different style of music, then we could possibly incorporate it into next year and improve it.
You might regret saying that.
Wendy House, perhaps.
It sounds like Councillor Mitchell's got some ideas already.
It wasn't that. The only thing I was going to say, just as input, and this is so obvious, it shouldn't be necessarily said, but I see the problem occurring all over the place, is that the great people who orchestrate this outside this council are doing a brilliant job, obviously. They need refreshing. It's important to have succession, because people get tired. I've done it 5 years, somebody says. It's somebody else's turn. You've got to find the other people, and I mean, I hope in our guidance to them and our help to them and our support to them, we are trying to make sure fresh blood comes into the organising process and the forum and so forth, because that is why things tail away, and it's as important as money, if not more important.
I think that's absolutely right. But it's also important to make sure that the committed and skilled people we have already aren't scared away, if you like, from making changes that they don't feel able to work with. So that's quite a delicate balance, isn't it, to bring in fresh blood, as it were, and retain the expertise and the enthusiasm that's brought us to where we are now.
Chair, just building on that, I think the paragraph in 8.4 on page 7 of 13 from the feedback from the live forum, it's where they're saying it's a good example of how local authority and community can work together, etc. And that to me, it just makes you so proud to have actually been associated with it. And I think they will carry on. I admit, keep them happy, but that sort of paragraph, if they wrote that, they're on board. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Actually, the form wrote some pretty interesting stuff, didn't they? We've got it attached to our papers and makes very, very positive comments about the future. So I believe we have a consensus. Excellent. Super. So can I just confirm then for the record that we, in terms of 2.1 and 2.2, that's what we agree in terms of taking this forward? Yeah, excellent. Thank you. I didn't say, sorry, Councillor Mrs. Ostleton, I don't know whether you want to make a comment at this point. I did say I would ask you if you wish to, but it seems like we are there with it. Thank you very much. Okay, excellent. Thank you, committee. Thank you very much. And thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Without being rude, we're going to move straight on. And I would like to welcome the very lovely June Balcom, Community Development Team Leader, who is going to talk to her paper, Community Buildings Strategy and Action Plan. June, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. A report was presented to this committee in March this year where members endorsed the draft principles that would be used in developing a community building strategy. Following the endorsement of this committee, community associations, village hall trustees and other stakeholders were consulted on the draft principles. With the general support received from those consulted, the principles have been used as the basis for developing a strategic approach. The report presents a draft community building strategy which is based on 3 objectives and 26 principles for guiding decision makings into the future. The draft strategy is also accompanied by an action plan setting out the activities required to implement the plan over its first 3 years. The committee is invited to endorse the draft strategy and the action plan, and any comments you may have from this committee will be included in the report to the portfolio holder for partnerships, which will seek adoption of these documents later in the year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I did, didn't I? Thank you very much, June. Any questions for June, committee? Councillor James.
It's just one very quick one and relates to my ward. Obviously, one of the intentions is that everyone should be within a 15-minute walk in the urban area to a community facility or community building. There are areas of my ward where there are a number of community buildings particularly close together. Are we going to be looking in the future at rationalising them, because when we apply our strategy to looking at renewal or changes to those centres, they don't neatly fit the strategy? Or are we saying this is a strategy we're working towards, however we accept that within that there may be some local differences that need looking into in further detail, rather than just applying the strategy and then saying, oh, we can perhaps lose a site?
Yeah, we won't be just applying the 15-minute walk time per se, because as we know, every building is designed differently. So some are at capacity, some have satellite buildings depending where they are. So it's using it as a principle that we would look at that, but it wouldn't be the ultimate that we can't, have other buildings that are within that vicinity.
And in terms of community centres, obviously there's the geographical community, I guess we're all associated with, where very clearly the Oakridge Village Hall for All applies, it's used globally, but I mean it very much to a geographical community, and Popley Fields, again, geographical community. When you get a centre that applies to perhaps a culture, and I mean I might as well be obvious and talk about the Irish Centre that's right next to a community centre already, and they're both community centres, is there recognition within that there are centres that apply to a different community, not a geographical one but a cultural one, and is that acceptable? Is that something we need to review and look into, whether the council should be still subsidising effectively these buildings?
I think all of these would be things that we would look at in the future. One of the actions, as you see, is about looking at the usage, where that comes from. One of the examples used, where we looked at Popley Fields, was looking at where the users come from by using postcodes, so we could plot where they come from. And if you see from Popley Fields, although lots of people locally use it, there is a wider catchment for that, and some of the bigger centres you would expect that, because they can offer better facilities and larger facilities to accommodate different activities.
Sorry, any other questions? Happy to move into the debate again. If I could ask you to focus on the two recommendations from the report. Councillor Mitchell.
I'm not entirely convinced by, on page 24 of 5.3, of the principles, an average of 15 minutes drive in rural areas. It makes a nice, neat comparison, but 15 minutes drive at 40 miles an hour is 10 miles. And a high proportion of people in the rural, so-called rural areas are in villages, and in the villages you're walking distance of the village hall or community hall typically. And there will be people who are out in the hamlets who might be 5 miles away, in some cases maybe even further, but I can't think of any in my area particularly where they're more than 5 miles away from the nearest village with a community hall of some kind. So I think we should be a little more ambitious than, I mean, I would say no more than 15 minutes drive. I'd perfectly say no more than 10 minutes drive. But the average of 15 minutes drive suggests that half of the people concerned are 30 minutes drive away. That's what an average means. Or, I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of that, but it could mean that people are half an hour's drive away. Well, I'm only half an hour's drive from Basingstoke, and I live on the very edge of the borough. So I don't think an average of 15 minutes drive makes a lot of sense.
Do you want to respond
Sorry,
to that?
I thought you was in debate, not questions. Sorry.
I think it's a fair comment, although I would hate to think that the average speed of somebody passing through our villages was equating to that. I would hope that they're actually, their average speed is something like 10 miles an hour, so that means most of our village halls in our ward are in about the right locations. Yeah?
To expand a bit on that, because I do have concerns with this 15 minutes, even in the town areas, because different people, different walks. How do we get there? We've got a transport thing, but it's trying to be built in. But I've got this feeling it's going to be too rigid, and my concern is, you've got a community hall here, but the people who live over there don't use it, and I think we could end up being very rigid using these sort of terms of 15 minutes and blooming walking or going in a car or whatever. I've just got concerns about the whole concept of that. If we're talking about communities are built within an area. It could be further away or closer. And I think when we're talking about time limits, getting to these community centres and different things and how many within a radius, all depends on the community. I think each one should be stand by it or fall by their own merits of what the community wants.
Please.
I'm very sorry, Chairman and June, not to come with a proposition, which is what I normally do on these things, but I'm a late substitute, so I haven't really had time to think about it. It's just that it seems average may not be the right formula. That is all I'm saying. And without wanting to disrupt proceedings and hold it back, maybe we could think about that a bit more and think about where these places really are and what the distances are. And ideally, most people can walk to a community hall, but if you have to drive, an average of 15 minutes is a very long drive, because it means half of them are going to drive 35 minutes or something. And that is not a community facility in the sense we all understand it. So I'm not being critical of this. It's a nice phrase to put in, and the idea that everyone should live within 15 minutes of community hall suggests something stronger than an average. Just needs a bit of thought, I think, and I'll put my own mind to work on it if I've got a minute.
Thank you very much. Yes, June.
The 15 minutes actually comes nationally, although there's no sort of national guidance as such, but when in my research when I looked at it, those principles are used quite in various building strategies across the country. So, and it was also used in our leisure needs analysis that was done several years ago now. They used that basis as well. So I think it was the principles which you did all endorse at the last meeting, is trying to say that everyone should have access to buildings, and not to use it as a sort of, get the measuring tape out every time we look at a building and measure how far people are from somewhere.
Thank you. I mean, I heard it as being a sort of a general guiding comment rather than something that is going to be hijacked into a rigid frame. But how you stop it from becoming that is something I think we need to be mindful of. I think that's the point that's being made. Councillor Cousins.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, recommendation 2.2 asks us to comment on the report as a whole. My comment would be that we should have rationalisation as an absolute last resort. I think it would be an absolute shame if we were in a position where we had to close down community centres, and I would like it noted or commented in the report that the council should be doing everything possible, that if there is a community centre in danger or in trouble, that we should be doing everything that we can in order to ensure its safety and its continuation.
I would have thought that was a guiding principle behind everything that this paper is saying. But you're right to pinpoint it, but I would have thought that is something that is pretty sacrosanct in relation to what we're trying to achieve with this policy. Yeah. Councillor Mrs. Tucker.
I just wanted to mention what's being done in Tadley, whereby we are trying to keep all the different uses reasonably close to one another, and Jude knows only too well, because she's been involved with it, of acquiring land from the county council for a youth facility, which is one of the key things I think that we need, and I think everybody would agree with that. I just think it is actually working in Tadley. Hooray!
Thank you very much. Any other points, comments? Councillor James.
There's just one, and it may be a completely wrong paper because I can't find it now. But I saw a comment in there about local decision making and localism and big society and various other sort of names that are bandied around, and it said, in consultation with the local organisation, the parish council, and obviously in the urban area there is often no single association or certainly no parish council. So I just wanted to make it included that no decision should be made on a ward without full consultation with the local ward councillors, as effectively acting as the parish council or having responsibility to sort of take up that role in making sure that their ward is defended, and that their engagement from a very early stage, whether it's investing in 106s or anything else, should be absolutely critical and important, which it was recently with one of my centres that was done, and I just wanted to make sure that continues, so I don't wake up one morning and find something's moved or changed.
Members, any other debating points? Councillor Mitchell.
On my earlier point, I worked out my recommendation, which is that we strike out the words "an average." Everyone in the borough should live within 15 minutes of community building. In the urban areas and larger rural settlements, this should be 15 minutes walk. In rural areas, this should be 15 minutes drive. That says what the principle says. The word average has crept in, but I don't think it's meaningful in this context, because it could mean 30 minutes drive, which wouldn't make any sense at all.
Yeah, that is a point well made, and I think we've captured that, haven't we, Tim? Yes. Thank you. Councillor Round.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say, really, I think that it's a good paper. What it does, it sort of gives us a good basis for measuring and monitoring. So for the future, we've got some basis of making recommendations on. So we should, I certainly hope we will support it.
Yeah, I think the spirit of it is very much a starting point, isn't it? And it's something to be built on over time. But it's important to keep the right principles in place from the beginning and not stray into points that are going to ultimately be unhelpful, or references to conditions or criteria that are ultimately going to be unhelpful. Any other points of debate? Councillor Jones.
I'm losing it today. It's page 4 of this report. I don't know whether of the draft appendix 2. I think that B2 is excellent, because one of the problems we've had in the past with our community centres, we've spent a lot of money on building them, but to maintain them we need to spend a lot more, because they're one-off buildings. And I think if we can sort of get an approach where they're pretty general, I think it will save a lot of money for the community as well as the council. So I think that's excellent.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jones. I think we've captured that also. Any other points, members? Can we agree the recommendations at 2.1, 2.2, and to include what you've just captured as comments? Do you want to hear those said back, or do you trust us?
I was going to suggest that perhaps one of the recommendations could be for the committee to endorse the changes proposed by Councillor Mitchell in terms of the removal of the word average. I think I would meet with general consensus, so we can actually have that as a recommendation.
Thanks, Chair. Is that agreed? Thank you very much indeed. June, thank you. You're free to go. And the next one right in here, please. All right, okay. Early. Well, good evening. Thank you very much. It wasn't too long a wait, was it? You said you'd stay till about 7, and then if we hadn't got to you by then, you'd be going home. Okay, we're on to paper D, members, which is the corporate equality plan, and we have with us the policy manager Leslie Murphy and the policy officer Jane Rawlins. Matthias, have I pronounced that correctly? Great. I know my wines. Not. Thank you very much. And we also have the portfolio holder, Councillor Miss Hughes, for this paper. Thank you very much. I presume will reserve your right to speak if you wish to do at some point before we conclude the paper. Thank you very much. So, Leslie, and sorry, Jane, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you.
Hello, good evening. Thank you, Chair. This report follows on from the last Autocon meeting in November 2010 and aims to update members on work undertaken to review the Council's current equality and diversity policy and procedures. The Council's equality plan and single equality scheme were approved by Council in April 2011, but they're scheduled for review this year and next year respectively. It's proposed to merge the current single equality scheme and equality plan into one corporate equality plan. The idea is that there's no major changes being made. However, it will provide a more concise view of the Council's approach to equality and diversity. It illustrates how the Council's equalities priorities are being put into practice and includes measurable objectives, to continue to support their delivery. And that links into how the Council is meeting the Public Sector Equality Duty, which is in the Equality Act 2010. We've taken the opportunity to ask those who were involved in shaping previous documents about their views on the plan, and they've been broadly supportive. So our recommendations are that the committee notes the approach to equalities outlined in the report and endorses the corporate equality plan, but we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. I like these officer presentations. They're really punchy tonight, aren't they? Great. Absolutely. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Okay, questions for the officers, and Councillor Cousins has got in first out the traps.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your report as well. My question is that normally these items go out for public consultation. Can you tell me if this is planning to do so?
As Jane's actually indicated, there's no significant change to the document or the objectives therein. In this case, and in all cases, we try and make consultation proportionate to what we're doing and what we're inviting comment on. As Jane mentioned, when we formulated the last documents, of which there were two pieces, if you like, there's the equality plan and the single equality scheme, which comprised, I can't remember now, one was 15 pages, another one was 22 pages. What we've tried to do is distill down the key elements of that, and the main points are what we're about, how we're trying to do that, and what the objectives are, and they've not significantly changed. Having looked at that and taken that through the Equality Strategy Group, the view was it would be disproportionate to do a large piece of consultation, but we have gone back to key stakeholders and those representative groups that were involved the last time to apprise them of what we're doing and invite comment. And as Jane mentioned, they've all been broadly supportive and quite happy with the approach that's been taken.
Thank you for that. I just wanted clarification as to that. And then just to follow up, you said that the majority were broadly supportive. Could you give us an indication of some of the struggles that you had in your consultation, please?
Yeah, just say no struggles were identified. I think, to be specific, generally the people that came back to us had one or two general questions about a word here or there and the use of a certain term, but there was no sort of issues raised.
Thanks. Any other questions for the officers? Okay, again, moving to debate. And again, if I could ask that we focus the debate on the two recommendations at 2.1 and 2.2. Happy? Oh, blimey. No. No, don't spoil it now, Gary.
Just to say that when we don't debate something in a committee and then just endorse without any discussion, it's not because we're not interested, it's because the office has done such a thorough report and looked into it well, and I think that's important that this poor lady hasn't stayed here all night to hear us say nothing.
Absolutely correct. You took the very words out of our mouth, Councillor James. Absolutely right. Councillor Mitchell wishes to make a point, but can I just make sure that the officers understand that that's the rationale for not debating it to death? We're very pleased with the quality of the report that's been done. Thank you. Councillor Mitchell.
I just one comment on page 82 of 121, page 9 of some appendix, with the examples of work with groups and organisations. I do think that after all these years we should prevail upon the Over 55s Forum to call itself the Over 65 Forum. I mean, I've spoken to the Over 55s Forum several times. Chance of finding anybody under 65 in the audience is nil, and most of them are over 75. And I really do think over 55s is a ridiculous term for elderly people these days. So next time you're in contact with the over 55s, I'll send them a note myself making this recommendation. But it's a ridiculous idea. We have an over 55s as any sort of category for anything.
Thank you, Councillor. I won't ask the officers to comment on that. Yeah. Thank you very much. So, we agreed with the I won't beat it to death. We agreed with the recommendation just to confirm that we're okay with moving forward from this report. And thank you very much. And again, thank you very much for a super report. Obliged. Yeah. Yes, I know. Do you wish to? No, I didn't think you would. With all due respect, I'm pleased about that. Okay, so we're now going to look at paper E, and we still have the same lineup for this paper. And I think, Leslie, this is going to be your presentation, isn't it? And hopefully it's going to be as short and sweet as Jane's was. Yeah. Okay, so this is Safeguarding Children and Vulnerable Adults Policy. Thank you, Leslie.
Okay. In the same vein, obviously, as what Jane's just been through on the equality plan, we obviously have a process for regularly reviewing the policies that we have in place. And as members may recall, in 2010, this committee actually considered and informed the current safeguarding policy, which relates to protection of children and young people. We've got to a process where we have updated that policy to reflect structural changes and make sure that it actually reflects the right people that you now need to report concerns to, etc. But we've also taken the opportunity to actually look at the inclusions within that policy and consider vulnerable adults. This council doesn't currently have a safeguarding vulnerable adults policy, although it's good practice to do so. Having considered the inclusions, many of the principles are generally the same. Rather than try and increase the reading matter for everybody and duplicate and have another policy, we've taken the opportunity to bring them both together. What we're hoping for is any comment, an endorsement of the draft policy that's before you, which will then be subject to a portfolio holder report. I'm obviously happy to take any questions or comments in the committee.
Yes, Councillor Ms. Waldridge.
Thank you, Chair. Again, I think this is a very good report, and it makes perfect sense to combine the two procedures. My question is about sort of how councillors, I mean, obviously members of this committee will be are made aware of it through this paper tonight, but how are you going to make the wider councillors aware of this policy? And sort of a further question about training for councillors, because it mentions training for staff, but not so much training for councillors. Thanks.
Obviously, as I just mentioned, the intention is obviously with the endorsement of this committee and taking the policy forward, it will be subject to a portfolio holder report. So it will go out to all members, and we'll take the opportunity to make them aware of the policy and the extension to vulnerable adults. I believe in the past, when the current policy went through and when we also took through the equalities plan, there was an update at full council to members on that. I wouldn't go anywhere near suggesting that's training in any way, shape or form, and I would hope that there is general awareness of the policy that's there. What we are doing at the moment is updating the e-learning package that we have for staff, and we're also looking at trying to equip staff internally that are fully aware of those issues and able to help operational level staff to actually run some courses and training on the matters and give them that face-to-face interaction. And there's no reason why we couldn't make that available to members if so wished, and we'd be more than happy to offer them.
Yeah, could I think you made a really excellent point. Could I remember the last time it came to this committee, and Karen Brimacombe, the corporate director, came and spoke to us about it, and that was a concern that was expressed. You know, okay, so how does it apply to, and how do we get up to speed with safeguarding? So I think Councillor Mr. Waldron makes a really good point, and I'm sure all councillors would like to access whatever level of awareness raising. You're not calling it training, but whatever you call it, that's a really key point, I think. Councillor Cousins.
Thank you, Chair. One quick observation before my question. Page 93 of 121. I believe the telephone number for June Balcom is incorrect. I believe the suffix is wrong. Okay, that's good. My question then was again on the theory and thread of consultation. Has this policy either in its past sort of conception or this time round, has it been commented on by charities such as the NSPCC to get their point of view and any feedback that they have on it? Because I think that might be a useful thing to do.
It hasn't been out to stakeholder groups. It hasn't been out to say we can certainly do that. What I would be uncomfortable with is delaying anything and delaying any policy internally. Most of this is standard wording and standard approach, and we take our guidance through the county and Hampshire Safeguarding Children's Board for the most part, and where we can, any relevant legislation around adult safeguarding. So there shouldn't be anything in there that's in any way, shape or form contentious, and we are not, it has to be said, the lead authority on any of these areas. We take that guidance from county level.
No, that's fine, thank you. I'm not insinuating that you have put anything that's incorrect. I just wanted to make sure that these things are considered, that's all. Thank you.
I suppose if you thought that the telephone number was wrong, then there could be a lot more in there. Councillor, so is it a question, or I was about to move into debate, but if it's a question, very happy for you to ask it. Oh, please go ahead.
I actually wanted to make the same point that Mrs. Waldridge has said. Sorry, I'm going to lose my voice again. On page, whatever it is, 15, it mentions cyberbullying. Sorry, it mentions bullying. Does that include cyberbullying, which is obviously the more recent and worrying thing? That's one question.
I suppose it's the principle of bullying. I mean, once you accept that bullying affects it, it would take on whatever that connotation would be. Most of the time, you get to the stage where when you're talking to people that are reporting it, all of that starts to feed in. And if you have a considerable concern, then you should report it. It's not for us to judge whether that's the right issue or not. That goes on to the next level.
Yeah.
And on the next page, which is page 16, and number 3 on the do's and don'ts, I'm just a bit concerned about the wording. If you think about it, avoid being with a young person alone in an enclosed room with only one adult. It's rather inferring that I think what I've put is as the only adult or something like that. I think it could be misinterpreted. Oops.
I'm more than happy to take that on board, and some of this will need another revisit. You'll appreciate that we've played with things so many times to try and simplify the words. It really is trying to get across that you should try wherever possible to be an open aspect when you're in contact with them. That's not always possible, but yeah, certainly take on board your comment.
Thank you. I think the cyberbullying point is a good one. It probably doesn't need to be explicit because it's implicit in the safeguarding, isn't it? You wouldn't somehow exclude it for any reason, so it is implied that it's covered. Yeah. Any other points, members? In a sense, I hate to say the word, it's a no-brainer. When I read this, I thought this is so straightforward and so sensible and so measured and so proper that it would be odd if we didn't just follow the recommendation and endorse the draft policy. It's in everybody's interests. So can we agree that that's what we're doing? Thank you very much, members. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Right, we are amazingly, members, onto our last paper, and it's just an hour, which is absolutely incredible. So let's keep it up. No. We have the Gazette. We could look at that, couldn't we? Marion, good evening. Thank you very much. Last but by no means least, the final paper F, Olympic Strategy Outcomes, and we have Marion Short to do. I've seen this presentation and it's pretty good. It makes a pleasant change from pages and pages of bullet points and death by PowerPoint. This is a very good representation of. Now, actually, when we discussed this, you were going to put it on at the end, weren't you? As a bit of a wow at the end. Is that what you're going to do?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, if I may, I'd just like to play it at the end. So I'll do a very brief introduction and take any questions, but then play out with a video at the end.
Thank you very much, Marion.
Okay, thank you, Chair. The report you have in front of you is the sort of culmination of activities arising from the Olympic strategy, which was adopted by the Council in 2007. And over that 6 years of activity, there's been a range of activity across all sectors, not just sport. It's been participation in the arts, in community activity, tourism, business, health, environment, learning, sustainability, and most of all, I think, celebration of the Olympic and Paralympic ideals. I think we should be very proud of the contribution our borough has made. Our schools, clubs, community groups, parish councils and individual residents have all contributed to something that was inspired by the Olympic and Paralympic Games. And we wanted to share with you a flavour of some of those activities. And we have, so, put together a short video trying to capture some of the highlights. This will effectively draw a line under our Olympic strategy, but we do recognise that the legacy needs to go on and that there is more to do, particularly in terms of participation. And we will pick that up through our current work in sports development, in our health outcomes, and we will certainly be looking to bring back something to this committee later about some participation initiatives. So I would like to share with you a brief video. I think it illustrates far better than we can say in words some of the highlights, but I am happy to take any questions prior to playing that if there are any.
I could have guessed that. Councillor Cousins.
Thank you, Chair. I heard my favourite word when it comes to sport, participation, and I'm glad to see that we will be getting a report on it and how we can improve it. My question is nice and simple. When can we look forward to seeing this report?
Well, the motion at the last committee, the resolution at the last committee was that we work with our partners to bring forward some participation initiatives. And we would like to do that with the partner organisations of the Sport and Physical Activity Alliance. Now, that is undergoing a refresh over the autumn, so I would anticipate bringing something to you in about June or July of next year. But as we progress our service planning and as we work with our partners, as we do constantly, we are always considering how we can better improve participation. So it's an ongoing process, but I would hope we can bring something to you in early summer of next year.
Councillor Cousins, thank you. I knew I could rely on you to refer to a paper that we haven't got, that isn't here, hasn't been written, but thank you very much for. So you wanted to say something else?
Just very quickly, and I appreciate, yes, that the paper will come in early summer. My hope is that it will come before the summer so that we can get things ready for the summer when the weather's nicer and we can get more people out and about playing in sport rather than missing the boat and having it too late to implement anything. So that was my only comment on that question.
You managed to do it again. Well done. Did you wish to make any comment? No, good. Excellent. Thank you very much. So, with no further ado, as they say in showbiz, can we see the... Oh, sorry. Yeah, I beg your pardon. Yes, questions. I'm so excited about this slideshow. I'm trying to get to it early, aren't I? Sorry. Councillor Mrs Tucker, is this a question or is
It's
it...
a question showing my ignorance.
Oh, never. No.
Light a lantern. Can you explain, please?
The Light a Lantern Festival was a celebration of disability sport with young people, and it was a competition and a showcase for pupils of our special schools primarily that combined. It was a county-led event last year, and it has continued this year, and we hope it will continue in the future.
Can I just make a comment now? I am allowed. Oh, thank you very much. I want to say I'm really upset when I hear that people feel that people haven't I can just don't know how to explain it. Taken on board the disability side of the Olympics and things like that. I have found it incredibly moving. I know so many people have said, isn't it wonderful to see people competing like they have? And people are so pessimistic. They say, oh, you know, it hasn't made any difference. It has made an enormous difference, and I just thought it was wonderful. Sorry, had to say it.
I think I agree with you. It has made a difference, but most people say it hasn't made enough difference, and that will always be the case, won't it? Steady. Any further questions for Marion? No. So we're debate. What? No. Right. We're going to debate. Councillor Mitchell.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. It's great that we've done so well with all this, and I was initially sceptical, so I'm impressed, but we've done so well. I just have one beef whenever the subject comes up, which is that we don't make enough here of the immense equestrian resources of this borough. And just draw attention to an example of that a state school on the borders of this borough, not actually one of our state schools, won the English all-schools polo championship. Much to the discomfort of Eton, Harrow and all of them wonderful places. But although the school itself is outside this borough, some of our residents' children participated. The team trained within this borough, on ground within this borough, on ponies owned by residents of this borough. And if anybody is in the slightest bit interested in equestrian sports, at Ashmansworth, up in the frozen northwest, where I come from, on the hills, where you get wonderful views, on Sunday afternoon we will have one of our residents, young girl, who is competing at national level in dressage, in which we did very well in the Olympics, as we did the show jumping and so forth. A young girl will be amongst those demonstrating for kids of all ages, including me and lots of my grandchildren, the dancing horses at Ashmansworth. On Sunday afternoon,
Brilliant.
Tea in the village hall afterwards, easy to find, free parking. I think it costs you £5 as a contribution to charity. Children come in free. Sunday afternoon of this week.
You heard it here first. I was just thinking then, I wonder if we could, when we're talking about expanding Basingstoke Live, I mean, dancing horses could well be the next feature, couldn't it? Yeah. Yeah. I think Marion's made the point that this paper is drawing a line under the Olympic strategy, but the legacy bit goes on and will do and should do. But I think, having read the detail of the things that have been achieved within the strategy, I think it's absolutely astounding. It's across the board. It's never enough. You can always say, well, it should have been more. There should have been better numbers. There should have been greater participation. We should have tried harder. What about those who were excluded? But I think, as a piece of work, I think it's a superb achievement on the part of our borough. And as it's listed in here, I was going down the list, ticking it on, thinking, wow, that's good. And it's so comprehensive because it seems to reach into so many different aspects of sport at all ages and so on. So I think my own view would be that this has been a success story. We need to think about things that Councillor Cousins has been speaking about for the future to keep that momentum. If there is, Councillor Round.
Thank you, Chair. You did acknowledge me, and I thought perhaps you may have forgotten me. I had 2 points. One was really when I read the report and thought just to say there's some excellent examples of what's come about, what we've been doing, and well done to Basingstoke and Dean Borough, I think, is to be said. And the second point, which is nearly related, because Councillor Tucker touched on it, but for those of you who think I've got a phobia of horses when you come and listen to me battering on in planning sometimes, on Sunday I will be attending the Riding Disabled for Borkhurst, which has been in existence for 40 years, so it's their 40 years of anniversary, so Riding for Disabled in Basingstoke, it's in Borkhurst, is of course supported, and I will be there.
I expected you to unfurl a banner down that side. Yeah. Any other points? Because I think we're in agreement again. I'll go on, my Councillor Mrs. Furich.
No, again, I'd just like to say it's an excellent report, and I look forward to seeing the clip in a few minutes. Given that the Tour de France is coming into next year to the UK, I would like to see, when your plan finally does come to us, and it would be nice to see cycling included in there, and ideally, given that it's next year when the Tour de France comes here, if we could do something with cycling before then, that would be great, because I think that's something that is lacking here, and that's something which, as everyone knows, was one of the biggest success stories of the Olympics last year.
Thank you for that. So I think we might have arrived at video time, yes. Do you need the lights down for this, or? No. Well, quite excellent. Thank you very much to you and your team for not just putting that together, but the whole process. So successful, and thank you very much. Can I ask that the final piece is that we follow the two recommendations to note the outcomes and note the progress? Agreed? Yes. Yes. Thank you very much, Madam. Is there anything else you wanted to mention, Councillor Mrs. Ostleton, before we... No? Yes, you do.
I'd just like to say thank you from the work that we've done since 2005, the work the officers have put into it, and especially from the children's perspective, and the wonderful team that came over from Germany, from Ushkin. I think I pronounced it right, did I? This year, and we'll be going over there, and the competition and the work that was done with the children was excellent, and I think may long it continue. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you, man, and thank you everybody else, and thank you, members. Sorry? Are you paying? Another map? Yeah, okay. Yeah. Thanks, members. A good evening's work, I think. Thank you very much indeed, and see you next time. Thank you.